Howdy gamers, Wrath of the Lich King Classic is officially live, and today we're going to discuss Shadow Priest Season 5 Best in Slot gear. As a quick recap, Shadow Priest is a caster DPS class that has high damage through their damage over time abilities, while offering a number of utility spells that benefit allied teammates. Season 5 is the first arena PvP season of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and is unique because there are 3 tiers of PvP sets ranging from blue rare to high quality epics that you will scale as the season progresses. The Savage Gladiator set is a blue rare PvP set that is obtainable through honor, which you can farm in the various battlegrounds in Wrath of the Lich King, arena points, as well as emblems of heroism, which are obtainable from heroic dungeons as well as 10-man raids. Hateful Gladiator gear is the second tier of the 3 tiers of PvP sets and is epic quality and obtainable through a slightly higher number of arena points per item, honor points, or emblems of valor, which are farmable through 25-man raids, such as Naxxramas. Lastly, the final tier in Season 5 of PvP sets are the Deadly Gladiator items, which are available only through arena points and typically require a fairly high arena rating in order to obtain them. If you are struggling obtaining the number of points or the rating required to get some of the Deadly Gladiator gear, I highly recommend aiming for the Hateful Gladiator gear or some of the Titan Forged items, which are available through the Winter Grasp marks. The final precursor worth discussing before we get into specific items and why those items have been chosen are Shadow Priest PvP stat priority. Your most important stat is resilience, because without resilience, you're going to have no damage mitigation and you're going to die very fast. Followed by resilience is going to be spell power, haste, spell penetration up to around 130. After that, it has diminishing returns, and hit up to 4%. After that, it has diminishing returns. Followed by that is crit and/or spirit. We'll discuss the differences between crit and spirit at length, and then intellect and stamina. Those are going to be the most important stats for Shadow Priest. We ignore strength and agility. Shadow Priest has 2 unique PvP sets to choose between. You have the Mooncloth set, which has Spirit on it, and you also have the Satin set, which does not have Spirit, but instead has Critical Strike rating. So you can choose between Spirit or Critical Strike rating. Now we get into the Satin versus Mooncloth debate, a debate that's been raging in private servers and since original Wrath of the Lich King. Which one should you choose for Shadow Priest? Is Spirit better than Critical Strike for the regen and the bonus spell power? Or is Critical Strike better for the enhanced spikes of burst damage that can help you kill opponents? Well, it's not exactly set in stone. When choosing the Satin set and going for crit over Spirit, you're essentially opting for faster games where you can deal more damage. And just because resilience mitigates the chance to be crit as well as the damage from critical strikes, the damage is significant. Even at a 10% less chance, we'll just assume it's that at around 1,000 resilience, and even 20% less damage from critical strikes, the spell power coefficient on Shadow Priest abilities for all damage over time spells while in shadow form is 100% enhanced damage on any dot you have. If you have 5 out of 5 Shadow Power, which is a talent in the Shadow Tree, you also get 100% bonus damage on your other spell damage abilities such as Mind Flay, Mind Blast, and Shadow Ward Death. So the Satin set gives you a lot of enhanced spike damage, less regeneration, and is opting for shorter games, perhaps double DPS comps, battlegrounds, things of that nature. When choosing the Mooncloth set, the Spirit variation, you're going for more mana regeneration, especially from the 50% offered with the meditation talent in the discipline tree, as well as 20% more spell damage. So you'll have more consistent damage and higher longevity, oftentimes opting for higher length of games and perhaps more utility rather than pure damage output. There's also an argument to be made for splitting the sets and foregoing the 4-set bonus for enhanced spell power and reduced cooldown on your weakened soul from Power Ward Shield, and just going for pure resilience, becoming more tanky. There are players that do this, and they have a combination of the Satin pieces as well as the Mooncloth. We call it 2-3, and this can also be very effective. Kind of an in-the-middle hybrid variation. After doing some calculations, the benefits of each variation of set, whether Satin, 2-3, or Mooncloth, are significant. The bonus damage from the critical strikes, even with resilience factoring in, is significant. The mana regeneration and longevity of Mooncloth is significant. And the 100 resilience bonus of splitting the sets is significant. There are high-rated players on the Warmain private server running each of the variations of set, and I think it ultimately comes down to playstyle, preference, team composition, as well as expectations. So now that we've discussed the differences between the possible sets you can choose, as well as the pros and cons to each, I'm going to get into my personal best in slot list as an undead Shadow Priest main, and then we're also going to look at the best in slot list from Turaxyy, who is a Warmain player, a very high-rated Shadow Priest, especially in the 2v2 bracket. The first item up is the Deadly Gladiator Satin Hood. We have here the beautiful 29 spell power and 20 resilience enchant, also with a 25 spell power and minor run speed metagem called the Tireless Sky Flare Diamond. And then we went ahead and threw in a Veiled Monarch Topaz for spell power and hit. Again, we're opting for up to 4% hit, purely for dispels. You don't want your dispels to miss. And then maximum damage with spell power and crit. The Helm enchant is the Arcanum of Dominance, which requires 40 Winter Grasp Stonekeeper's Shards, so make sure to do your Winter Grasp. Next up is the Deadly Gladiator's Pendant of Subjugation. This is one of the off pieces farmable by Honor. It does require a personal and team arena rating of 1600. You can use a PvE item up until you get that arena rating and the Honor required, but this has everything we want: spell power, haste, resilience, high stamina. It's a great item. For our shoulder slot, I've opted to using the Deadly Gladiator's Satin Mantle, with the Inscription, 23 spell power and 15 resilience, and a 20 resilience rating gem, which you can get from Winter Grasp marks. The enchant is from Inscriptions, and if you are an Inscriptionist yourself, you can go ahead and make the beautiful Master's Inscription of the Storm, 70 spell power and 15 critical strike. Oh, and speaking of Inscription, as well as other Wrath of the Lich King professions, the tier list from my research for Shadow Priest PvP is Engineering is the #1 profession you can have for PvP because of the glove enchant, followed by jewel crafting / blacksmithing. Both of those are very good, followed by enchanting / tailoring, and then everything else behind that, but they also have utility. Our cloak is the Deadly Gladiator's Cloak of Subjugation. One of the arguments against going tailoring for PvP as a Shadow Priest is you lose the ability to get the 35 spell penetration enchant, and so you have to gem spell penetration in order to reach the cap of about 130. But this cloak is awesome. Haste, spell power, resilience, really everything you want, and if you're a tailor, you can use the tailoring enchant. Our chest slot is the Deadly Gladiator's Satin Robe, with a simple +20 resilience rating enchant, 19 spell power red gem, 16 resilience rating yellow gem. You can swap out those gems if you need some other stats. Now we get to the off pieces, the bracers, belt, and boots. And in Season 5 of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, Shadow Priest actually has some fairly poor choices. You can either choose the crit variation, the dominance version, or the spirit variation, the salvation set. Ideally, and later on in phases, you get haste instead of crit or spirit, but this phase we don't have those haste options, so you have to choose between crit and or spirit. I've opted for just pure crit damage with the Deadly Gladiator's Cuffs of Dominance, simple 30 spell power enchant, and 1660 personal arena rating required. Our weapon is going to be the Torch of Holy Fire from Kel'Thuzad in Nox Ramus. This is going to be an item that basically every caster and healer wants, so it may be difficult to acquire, but this is our best in slot main hand. The enchant is +63 spell power, and for our offhand, we're going with the Deadly Gladiator's Grimoire. This is the offhand that has spell penetration, and the nice thing about it in Wrath versus TBC is you don't actually lose intellect on this item, but you gain a lot of spell penetration, helping you reach that 130 cap. And just as a quick reminder, if you're having trouble reaching the arena rating of 1930, you can always go for the Hateful Gladiators variation before this one as you improve your arena skills. Next up are the Deadly Gladiator Satin Gloves with the beautiful Hyperspeed Accelerators Engineering enchant on them, a 340 haste buff for 12 seconds on use. Insane for PvP and best in slot in my opinion throughout the entire game. socketed with an 8 resilience and 8 spirit gem. The reason for that is because it has the highest EQ value based on the calculations on this spreadsheet without overcapping in certain other stats while still getting the socket bonus. The Deadly Gladiator's Court of Dominance is the belt. You can also opt for the Salvation version for extra spirit. If you're blacksmithing, you get an extra gem slot on this with a simple 9 spell power, 10 spell penetration to help with that spell cap. Leggings are pretty straightforward. The Deadly Gladiator's Satin Legs with a 40 resilience rating and 28 stamina enchant. Red gem for spell power, and then some hit rating and spell penetration to help with those caps. Boots, we're using the Deadly Gladiator's Treads of Dominance. Again, you can use the Salvation version, or you can use the lower eye level Titan Forged version that has haste from Winter Grasp. We'll talk about that soon. With a 12 hit rating and 12 critical strike rating boot enchant and 16 hit rating to help have those dispels not resist. Our first ring slot is the ring that drops from Naxxramas, Kel'Thuzad. It is the Signet of Manifested Pain. This is going to be a very contested item, maybe difficult to acquire, but it has haste, it has crit for this build. The Signet of the Malevolent is also from 25-man Naxx. Very good ring with hit rating, but not as much spell power and no crit. Our second ring is the Deadly Gladiator's Band of Ascendancy. Basically everything you want. Hit rating, resilient spell power, and my Undead Shadow Priest is an enchanter, so I have the 23 spell power enchant. For jewel crafting is a little bit better. You can get 2 more spell power or more resilience, but I think enchanting is a useful profession. So if I re-roll it in the future, I might, but for now, I'm going enchanting and going to be using the ring enchants. For a non-human character, you're going to have to use the Medallion of the Horde or the Alliance. Offers 84 resilience and gives you the ability to break out of crowd control except for silences and disarms. Human obviously has the Will to Survive racial, so you can forego this trinket and pick up another PvE one, which makes Human the best race for PvP for pretty much any class you can play. Good for you, humans. That's why I made a Human Shadow Priest too. For the second trinket slot, you have a lot of options to choose from. There's really good PvP trinkets you can get with Honor or Winter Grasp marks, and there's really good PvE trinkets as well. For this particular build, I've opted for Dark Moon card Berserker. I don't know how expensive the Dark Moon decks are going to be, but they're probably going to be very pricey, so you may not be able to get these even this phase or not until late. But this one's pretty sweet. It has a 100 resilience rating. We love resilience as a Shadow Priest. And then you can stack 35 crit rating times 3, basically for the entirety of the fight. Your dots can trigger it, your heals can trigger it. The only thing that can't trigger it is damage absorbed by your shield, but every time you get hit, you have a chance to proc it. I think this is usually more of a melee item, and you can choose to go with the other Dark Moon card, Death. The Dark Moon card, Death, also really freaking good, especially because your dots can proc this. But there are a lot of options to choose for the second trinket slot. I'll show you some others on the next BIS list. Finally, we're ending my personal best in slot list with the Deadly Gladiator's Piercing Touch, which has spell penetration and gets you to that cap. So overall, this list has 2013 spell power, 3.13% spell hit. Ideally, you want 4, but it's a little bit hard to get that with this list without sacrificing some other stats. 14.5% crit, which obviously for dots is going to be 6% higher from talents, and for Mind Blast, Mind Flay, and Shadow Word Death, it's going to be 4% higher from talents. Almost 5% spell haste, 129 spell penetration, 1 short of the cap, but pretty good. And for any theory crafting geeks out there, this list was prioritized using equivalency points. I did my own custom calculations to nerf critical strike rating as well as buff spirit, and then also give more weight to spell penetration, resilience, and stamina. Our second best in slot list comes from Turaxyy. His Twitch channel is twitch.tv/Turaxyy with 2 Ys. This is public on his Twitch channel, so hopefully this is okay to share. But he's a rank 1 Shadow Priest, and I think it would be a disservice to not share this list with you all. So Turaxyy is prioritizing Spirit on his Season 5 Best in Slot list, as well as Haste. So he's foregoing a little bit of EQ, some stats, some eye level, in order to min-max Spirit and Haste. The first item is the Titan Forged Hood of Salvation. This is actually from Winter Grasp and is the equivalent of the Hateful Hood. It has less stats than the Deadly Hood, but it does have Haste, which the Deadly does not. and his meta gem is the 21 intellect and chance to restore mana. His necklace is the same as the one I selected, the Deadly Gladiator's Pendant of Subjugation, and for his shoulders, the Deadly Gladiator's Mooncloth Mantle. Again, nothing too special here, plus 16 resilience gem, as well as the typical inscription enchant. Turaxyy is using the same cloak, the Deadly Gladiator's Cloak of Subjugation, with the 35 spell penetration enchant, followed by the Deadly Gladiator's Mooncloth Robe. Here is interesting because this is a jewel crafting specific gem, the plus 34 resilience rating. Jewel crafters get 2 unique super buffed gems, and one of them is a resilience gem, so that's why jewel crafting is so powerful for most classes in PvP in Wrath. Turaxyy, instead of using the crit off pieces, is using the spirit off pieces. Again, in later seasons, we actually get haste off pieces, and we're going to pick those up, but he's using the Deadly Gladiator's Cuffs of Salvation. We are using the same main hand and offhand, the Torch of Holy Fire. If you can't get this mace, you can get the Deadly Gladiator's one, and I believe there's also a pretty good staff that one of the very high-rated players on Warmane is using. Ah, yes, here it is. Great Staff of the Nexus. This is also a very good staff, especially if you need the hit rating, which you might. Going down the list, Deadly Gladiator's Mooncloth Gloves with Hyperspeed Accelerators. He's using a 8 hit rating and 4 MP5 gem, again, really opting for that regen. The belt is the Deadly Gladiator's Court of Salvation with Spirit, and this is a blacksmithing enchant where you have an extra socket on your belt with the jewel crafting resilience gem. For legs, again, fairly straightforward. Deadly Gladiator's Mooncloth Leggings, 40 Resil, 28 Stam enchant, spell power and resilience gem, and hit rating and spell power gem. Turaxyy is using an interesting boot choice here. Instead of opting for the Deadly Gladiator's crit or spirit version, he's using the Titan Forged Slippers of Salvation, which are actually from Wintergrasp marks. These are a lower item level than the Deadly Gladiator's boots, but they do have haste on them, which the Deadly Gladiators do not. So sacrificing a little bit of item level and stats for that ever-important haste. Since he is using the meta gem for restoring mana and intellect, he's actually using a TBC enchant here. It looks like Boar's Speed with minor speed and 9 stamina, because you have to have minor speed either in your meta gem or on your boots. Turaxyy's ring of choice is the Signet of the Malevolent, which drops from, I believe it is Lotheb. Please let it be Lotheb. It's Gothic. What a fool. Drops from Gothic the Harvester, 25-man Nax. We already discussed this. Really good hit rating. He's not an enchanter, so no enchants. And then the second ring, again, the Deadly Gladiator's Band of Ascendancy. Turaxyy's actually using an item from Heroic Oculus, the dungeon, a rare item, the Pendulum of Telluric Currents, with 74 haste rating and a chance to deal bonus shadow damage. This is a very strong trinket and something anybody truly can pick up, especially if you don't have the resources to buy one of the Dark Moon cards or don't want to farm the resources and honor to get some of the PvP variations. Very strong rare trinket. This list is featuring a Night Elf, so he is using the Medallion of the Alliance, but I believe his human list features the Dark Moon card Death, with 85 critical strike rating and a chance to do bonus damage. Again, humans are just insanely good, but in Season 5, Night Elf actually could be a little bit better. Later on in ICC, the trinkets are disgusting, so human becomes Bis, but it's interesting to see the difference in Season 5. And lastly, he is also choosing the Deadly Gladiator's Piercing Touch with spell penetration. Overall, Turaxyy's list features a little bit less spell power, 1912, a little bit over hit cap at 4.84, almost no spell critical, so virtually no spells will be critting, but almost double the haste of my list at 9.48% haste, perfect 129 spell pen, and then more mana regen and significantly more spirit, which does add to spell power and gives this list a significant amount of additional mana regeneration, both in and out of combat. Overall, Shadow Priests get a massive buff in PvP into this expansion going from the Burning Crusade. And no matter which way you decide to gear and build your Shadow Priest, I think if you have the spooky spell power type of essence within your soul, you're going to do well and have a lot of fun. So let me know in the comments what your favorite build is. Are you going to be going Satin? Are you going to be going Mooncloth 2-3? and what your expectations of the Wrath of the Lich King are. Thank you so much for watching this Season 5 Wrath of the Lich King Shadow Priest Best in Slot Gear video. If you liked the video, please like the video, and also you can catch me streaming live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ExpiryTV. I'll be doing lots of PvP on both my Human Shadow Priest, where I'll probably go Mooncloth, and then my Undead Shadow Priest, where I'll go Satin. So hope you all have a wonderful start to Wrath of the Lich King, and until next time, Expiry signing out. Bye-bye, have a good day.